Hi, this is Pete Fernbaugh. Welcome to Trinity Talk. My guest today is John Devlin, music director and conductor for the Wheeling Symphony Orchestra. He's in his 7th season with the orchestra, and it's so good to have you here today, John.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of the WSO, and we wish we could get to all of the concerts and the events every year, but the ones we do get to, we love. Just to give our community an overview, and we'll get into Trinity Health System sponsorship of everything in a bit, but just to give the community an overview of what the average season at WSO is. By the way, I have heard people say favorably compare the WSO to Pittsburgh Symphony. Some folks, low-key, will compare it on a little higher plane than Pittsburgh's, not bashing Pittsburgh, but what the work that you do at WSO is highly acclaimed, and I'm just so glad to have you here today. So I wanted to get my fanboy groveling out of the way first.
Thanks for being so kind. And to be mentioned in the same sentence as the Pittsburgh Symphony is an honor. They are one of the country's, foremost ensembles. And it's beautiful for the Wheeling Symphony to be between the Columbus Symphony and the Pittsburgh Symphony, because those institutions are full-time orchestras. They are responsible not only for connecting to their community, but for being a place where music is performed at the absolutely highest level by the best guest artists that the world can produce. And in Wheeling, it's a different type of mission because we are so community focused. In fact, our slogan is "Your Community in Concert," because we want to be deeply connected to West Virginia, to the Ohio Valley, not just to Wheeling, but up and down the river here, including our community friends in Ohio and Pennsylvania. And because of that, we have a less rigorous schedule because our budget size is lower. So we have 11 to 12 concert weeks a year, and 7 of those take place inside of our historic home at the Capitol Theater, which is almost 100 years old. We have 4 Masterworks concerts where we feature the best of the classical music world, both new and old. And then we have 3 Pops concerts that vary in type. You and I were chatting before the mics went on, and we talked about the movie series, which is a relatively new aspect of what we offer, as well as some of the biggest and brightest Broadway stars, and then music that's familiar to people of the cover band variety. And then those are adjacent to the performances we do outside of the Capitol, which take us all throughout the state. For example, for our July 4th tour, we go to 4 communities around West Virginia, 3 of which do not have an orchestra, which I think is important work. For our young people's concerts, we travel not only through West Virginia, but also through southeastern Ohio and western Pennsylvania to visit schools where we hope to introduce kids for the first time to classical music. And then we have Symphony on Ice, which is an incredible experience. I know one that we'll be talking about a lot later in our conversation.
What's fascinating about that is you're giving us a window into what it's like to be the conductor, the director of a symphony orchestra that's in a predominantly rural area. And that almost, it's not a burden, but when you're in the city, people expect that kind of culture. When you're in a small community like Wheeling, that's not, if you're an outsider, that's not exactly what you expect. You don't expect a symphony orchestra of your caliber. So do you feel the weight of that responsibility as the director and conductor to not only perform in your home space, but then to take it out to communities, rural communities, and really introduce people to, hey, this is classical music. It's accessible. It's cool. It goes hand in hand with what you're hearing in movies. And those composers you love for movies, they're inspired by this stuff. That's always been fascinating to me. It's like, I think you balance that well. Is that a heavier burden than if you were in a big city? Or
you asked if I feel the weight of that responsibility, and you asked if it's a heavy burden. I don't associate the words heavy or weight with what that means. I just think it's deeply important. And when I went through my training in some of the highest population cities in the country, at some of those places where there is a fabric of love and support for classical music, and there may be 30 orchestras like there were in Washington, D.C. The biggest change in my career was the day I got the Wheeling Symphony job and had to reframe, okay, all of a sudden, this isn't about me getting better as a conductor and featuring the biggest possible names just because that's what's expected of the institution. Now it's learning a new community. I've never lived in a place like Wheeling, West Virginia.
Right.
I've never lived in a place with less than 1 million people. All of a sudden there's 25,000.
Right.
There are not thousands. There aren't even hundreds of people that come to the orchestra that could hum you the themes from the Tchaikovsky Symphony. Right? And so I said, okay, the job is now different. It's finding projects that will already relate to this community, and I have to figure out what those would be and design them well. It would be introducing the community to things they don't know yet, but I think that they will love. And it's also becoming a mission-based organization.
Right.
What are we going to stand for? Because we can't stand for everything. We have 11 concerts a year, right? So we have to start to say, what are things that we're going to prioritize, and why would that be important? And, this is not a good or a bad thing, it's just a fact that at the top 20 budget-sized orchestras in the country right now, none have an American music director.
Interesting.
That includes Columbus and Pittsburgh, and you could expand it a little further to Chicago or Cincinnati. The fact that some of these smaller, we call them regional orchestras, and Wheeling is a great regional orchestra. What can we stand for? Right. So I looked to mentors, people that I admire in the communities that they work, such as David Allen Miller at the Albany Symphony in New York, Diane Witchery at the Allentown Symphony in Pennsylvania, Teddy Abrams at the Louisville Orchestra in Kentucky. And I said, okay, what are they doing well? How have they made such a mark in their community, but also nationally for what the orchestra stands for? And then the first thing I did after looking to those people was I signed up with a career coach, somebody that I met with on a weekly basis for years, and I still have those meetings. And I think, okay, what are the things that I have to learn anew? How to work with a board of directors, how to work with a staff, how to work with a group of musicians that don't reside in Wheeling, but are such a part of the emotional and artistic fabric of the city when they are present.
Right.
And then how do we make sure that I can assess accurately the educational opportunities available for adults and kids in classical music, and if there are gaps in people's understanding about what they're experiencing in the concert hall, how do we bridge those gaps so once they're there, it feels like a communally understanding experience?
I've never heard someone so beautifully analyze this area the way you just did. That is a really intelligent and multifaceted analytical approach to how do you bring a quality orchestra, regional orchestra, to a small community. What are some of the challenges in programming that you have encountered, both artistically and then from a marketing standpoint?
So we have 4 Masterworks concerts a year.
I love those concerts, by the way.
Thank you, I do too. And there's a responsibility for the cellist in our youth orchestra that wants to be in the Wheeling Symphony one day. They have to hear Bach and Mozart and Beethoven and Brahms and Mendelssohn and Tchaikovsky and Mahler and Stravinsky. I just named a few off the top of my head, but that's more than we could fit on a season.
Right.
None of those people ever lived in West Virginia. How do we make sure that people who live in West Virginia, like Matt Jackford, who is the classical music voice of West Virginia Public Radio, is a dear friend of the symphonies, and he has written a number of pieces that the symphony has performed, or Matthew Harder, who is a Wheeling-based composer. He teaches at West Liberty University. We commissioned him to write a piece for our 95th anniversary concert. Those people have to be able to tell stories about our region. And then there are people all over the world, especially for us as a focus in the United States, who are writing incredible new music, that are partnering with the country's most innovative soloists. And a lot of the times that I talk to them and design projects, they say, there's not enough places that prioritize this type of work. And so when I talked about analyzing not just the local, but also the national landscape, Wheeling has become known as an incubator for those types of ideas. When Yo-Yo Ma, who's, by the way, it's his 70th birthday today, so happy birthday, Yo-Yo Ma, came to Wheeling, we paired it with a brand new project that was a beatbox concerto that no one had ever seen anything like it before. So these are the types of things that can set us apart, not just regionally, but nationally. And then we've won lots of awards and gotten lots of grant funding in order to support the continuation of that type of work. So when you talk about marketing, it's a challenge for us to, I think, educate people about what to expect because we're doing the unexpected.
Right.
But I do think that as we see the surveys come back that we send out after every concert, that's why things like the movie series have persisted, because we've tried a bunch of different things, But as soon as we saw the ticket sales and the positive feedback from our community about that being an offering that was new to our area, we said, okay, we have to listen to the people that are saying they love this and continue it. And we'll get to Harry Potter year at some point. But this year, it's got to be Star Wars.
I'm looking forward to that as well. One thing that I love about the Masterworks is, for the one I came to most recently, was where you had Chris Thiele, who is no slouch of a composer and musician. I mean, that was an incredible evening. But it was the second act. The first act was filled with, there was, I'm not going to remember the names and I apologize.
That's okay.
But you had commissioned a work from a West Virginia composer of color. That was remarkable. And it was a beautiful piece. You did a tribute to, I believe, Leonard Bernstein.
Yes, we did.
And tied that in with local history, which was remarkable. So I came to see Chris Thiele.
Right.
But I got classical music. I got contemporary music. And then I got, I don't know how he classifies himself. He's not on the charts, but he's certainly known, Chris Thiele.
Oh, yeah. He is a man of many trades, right?
Yes.
We call him a crossover artist.
He was a radio personality for many years. And so it was such a full evening. And what I walked away with was classical music, in the broadest sense, is not isolated from current pop culture. It paved the way for current pop culture. A lot of the composers who write scores for movies, they're inspired by classical artists. And you connect those so beautifully.
Thank you.
And suddenly, the person who will never listen to classical music on NPR, but will listen to the Star Wars soundtrack, or will listen to Chris Thiele or Sutton Foster or Renee Elise Goolsberry, suddenly they're like, wait, all music is interconnected. It's not, oh, this was way back when, and this is for very rich people to go listen to and dress to the nines and all that. You've made it accessible. And I just think you've accomplished that beautifully. Is that how you view music? Because you've also brought in rap and hip hop. I mean, that's these are worlds that a layperson like me thought were isolated from each other. If you're into rap, you're probably not into Tchaikovsky. You know, is that how you've always viewed music? Like, you've seen this, but you see how in the past, but you see how it connects to the present.
What a thoughtful question. I think that the lines that get drawn around eras and genres are put in posthumously. Like, Bach did not know he was a Baroque composer. Mozart did not know he was a classical composer.
They were pop composers.
They were the pop music of the generation. And a joke that I always tell, and I'll recycle it here, and maybe you'll laugh, is classical music's tagline is slowly dying since 1600. I mean, like, classical music has been around for almost 500 years.
Yes.
And it has meant something. There are more orchestras today in the United States than there were 100 years ago. It is the type of music that people think of as the pinnacle of artistic musical achievement, because 80 people come together, put aside their differences. We have young people and old people and men and women and gay and straight and any type of religious belief or socioeconomic class. They put all that side away and they say, let's create something beautiful together for people that want to come and hear us and celebrate something together. That's what draws me together about orchestras. It is a communal experience, and it is fleeting. That concert never happens again, and the way that it is performed, even if you do the exact same program in the exact same room the next night, it's never quite the same. So I think people realize there's a uniqueness to that. And then you asked about, okay, genre-specific things. For me, I grew up with classical music not being the primary focus of my listening.
Interesting.
I listened to Broadway and jazz, and my mother was always playing like Julie Garland or Linda Ronstadt or Billy Joel or Frank Sinatra in the house. I would go to the movies and hear the soundtrack that you're talking about. I loved ska punk, and I grew up, and Eminem just came out, and he was a phenomenon. And so to me, it was less about what instruments are being played and more about, do I love the content? And there are good rappers and there are bad rappers. And there are good pop artists and there are bad pop artists. And there's some good pop artists that I don't like. All of those things are okay.
Yes.
But I think to exclude someone from the Capitol Concert Hall because they don't fit into a genre that we associate with that type of performance, the only people missing out are the audience. And like you said, a benefit of being open-minded about the types of excellence that we present is that if somebody loves Chris Thile, and they come for him, well, did you know that one of the most famous conductors in the world, who was born in Wheeling 105 years ago, you never heard his name?
Right.
Why? Well, history erased his name. And again, this isn't a question about like racial equity or something. It's just, he's an artist that we should know and it's a proud of from our region.
Yes.
And did you know that Leonard Bernstein asked him to conduct this piece for him on Broadway?
That was so fascinating when you...
So let's play it.
Absolutely.
And so we're supporting American music. We're supporting history of the Ohio Valley, specifically in that case, Wheeling.
Which has a rich history.
It has an extremely rich history. We've done examinations of significant historical figures from Wheeling like that on many different concerts, so that the names of people like Will Dixon, Chu Berry, Eleanor Stever, Everett Lee, the person that we were talking about at the Chris Lee concert, that these people are known. And it's not just at the concert. Like we went to the high school and talked about Everett Lee. We did a lunch with books at the local library and talked about him. We're working on creating a memorial plaque to him in the lobby of the Capitol Theater so that future generations will know about him, so that we are responsible stewards of something that came before us and will be here after we're gone. But while we're in this chapter where you're an audience member and I'm the music director and we have conversations like this, that we have a mission-based approach to what we're doing rather than simply performing concerts for people, which is entertaining, but it doesn't necessarily build community the way we're hoping to.
Yeah, no, I think that's remarkable. An eye-opening moment for me was I'm a big Elton John fan, and this is probably 25 years ago. This back when people had satellite dishes. I guess they still do, but I don't know. But I was on one of these obscure channels, and it was Elton John playing with a symphony orchestra, and he wasn't playing his hits. He was playing classical pieces.
Oh, wow.
And then I was like, that was kind of an eye-opening moment for me where I realized this all intersects, and I think that's amazing what you're doing. Let's talk about that movie series real quickly.
Okay.
Because you've done Jurassic Park in the past.
Correct, Jurassic Park.
And then the Harry Potter first two movies.
Correct.
I remember sitting there, and you guys were so good at what you do. I forgot there was a live symphony orchestra down there playing it. And when I'd remember, and I'd look down, I'd be like, how are they recreating this incredible score live in time with the movie? And I saw the technology you had down there and everything to keep you on track. But that's an incredible feat. Take us, and Star Wars is coming up.
Coming up.
Just as complex. Give us a window into the process of preparing for one of those concerts, because the Capitol is filled when you do those.
Right. Yes. For all the movies we've sold over 2,000 tickets, and for a city that has 25,000 people in it. I'm not great at math, but that's almost 10% of the city sitting there in the audience, right? Those concerts take the most amount of time to prepare for anything that I do. So, because typically, we program between 70 and 80 minutes of music for a concert.
Right.
There, once we start, it's boom, for how long a movie is. It's 2.5 hours. So, the biggest challenge is the alignment, because we cannot be a second off from the movie, or else when the Trolls club hits the wall and the big bass drum happens at that moment. If it doesn't happen, then the audience is...
You're also doing some Foley there too.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yes. I talked about how I grew up loving pop music. I grew up loving different genres. I also grew up loving movies and video games, and both of those things come very much to the fore in the way I have to execute the movie scores. So in front of me is a small monitor that has the movie running, but it has about 15 added elements that no one else sees. There's things called streamers and punches that are on the screen. The streamers are red, green, white, and yellow, and they come across the screen in coordination with timing that I have to meet. Red means stop, green means go, and they're very creative with these things. Yellow means something important is about to happen and you gotta be in alignment, and the white is confirmation of what I'm doing. Those are the primary thing that I'm using visually to help me. There's also a mechanism called punches, and this harkens back to the original days when actual movies were on real film.
Right.
And they would actually take a hole punch and punch one frame of the film when the director wanted to make sure that the conductor knew something has to happen right there.
Interesting.
And so those punches are in alignment with the downbeats of the music. And then on top of all of that, I'm wearing an earpiece
Right.
that has what's called a click track. And every single beat of the music, and there are tens of thousands of them throughout the film in total, is being beat in my ear. And the dirty little secret is that what I am doing is not necessarily trying to be exactly with the click track.
Right.
What I'm trying to do is conduct musically and always know where the click track must align with something specific in the film, and making sure that my trajectory of pacing is leading us to those critical structural moments.
Yeah.
So I have visual, I have oral cues, and then it's up to me to make sure that the music sounds beautiful within those very strong strictures that are placed around it. And I have the movie file and I have the score many, many months in advance. So I'm preparing already now for the Star Wars that's happening in the spring. But the orchestra only gets together. We have 2 rehearsals. Wow. So this is something that like they prepare at home for their specific part.
Mm-hmm.
A whole tech team comes from the movie company that supports all of the
No kidding.
Yeah. So there's somebody running the visuals. There's somebody running the audio, which of course includes the sound effects and the dialogue, but removes the music.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's somebody there helping make sure all the technology works. So there's just, it's a whole operation, but boy, this is a relatively new product for orchestras. It's been around for about 30 years, but now they're really getting to the point where everything's digitized. The way that they present it makes sense. It used to be that you literally had a clock with a second hand and that you just had to stick with that, and it said in the score, like at 48 seconds, do this. That's very difficult. What they are doing now for someone like me with some ADHD, like I'm seeing all this thing.
I was going, I don't know how you...
I can do it, but it's like taking something that's hard enough on its own, which is conducting a symphony.
Yeah.
And adding all these additional elements to it, so it requires a very strong rigor of preparation. But once that's done, I don't have much more fun on the podium than when I'm doing those projects.
I'm sure. Yeah, and what I hope the audience reaction to hearing the WSO play those scores, I hope their reaction is the same that mine is, which is I want to hear everything these folks do. It's just a wonderful afternoon, and we brought our nephews to the 2 Harry Potter movies, and they loved it. They just was it's so cool. We're going to get into all the community outreach you guys do, which is impressive. You kind of gave us a preview of that.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you personally, though. I know you apprentice under some very prominent conductors, but now you're in the role where you're being a sought-after guest conductor.
Mm-hmm.
How does that, and you've been to Hawaii, correct, as a guest conductor? I mean, you've been all over the States with all of these various symphony orchestras. How does that inform how you program for Wheeling? What do you pick up along the way going to these different orchestras that kind of enriches our experience by proxy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that I gain has nothing to do with the art at all. It's just I'm seeing how the best orchestras in the country run their operation.
Yeah.
Because if I'm guest conducting in March,
Yeah.
I started talking to them 12 months earlier in March.
Yeah.
Planning the program, getting to know their full team, because I talked to the director of their artistic planning, I talked to the director of operations, I talked to their low-level artistic administration people, I talked to the librarian, I talked to the players that I'm going to be working with, I talked to the soloist. So, in Wheeling and in the other places where I've been music director, it's like I'm almost an in-house consultant for how like this gets done. And like, oh, I've seen this problem solved this way at the Louisville Orchestra, and this problem got solved this way in the Hawaii Symphony. What if we tried that? And so there's an avenue for programming itself.
Yeah.
There's an avenue for choosing guest artists that I've had a chance to work with at other places. And the inverse is also true, where something that I program in Wheeling for the first time goes really well. Then I say to other orchestras when they call my agent or they call me and say like, what types of things have you seen recently that you'd like to do here? I have a lot of ideas in that respect. I just got off the plane coming back from North Carolina, where we did an all John Williams concert.
Oh, that's cool.
With a lot of Harry Potter and a lot of Star Wars on it. So
good prep for spring.
Exactly. So these types of things kind of come in cycles, and the way it works as a guest is when you're very young and they're kind of looking at you for the first time, typically you're going to get brought in to do something that's oriented towards kids, a low pressure situation where you're younger and kind of relate to them. And then you'll move up to like packaged pop shows, the music of Queen, the music of Journey, like these types of things. We were kind of backing up a band. Now what I'm being asked to do more and more is these types of shows that relate with a Broadway guest artist, which is a primary
like Sutton Foster,
or John Williams or movie score type stuff, because those are programs where you still have limited rehearsal time, but the orchestra wants a really great musical experience from the conductor, because that music is filled with integrity and artistic possibility, right? So that's what I'm getting asked to do most now, and it makes me very happy to do it. And I think that the guest conducting serves Wheeling, and Wheeling serves the guest conducting, and it's a really nice thing to be able to spread the word about the work we're doing in Wheeling as people find out about our wonderful city in places like Raleigh, North Carolina, where I just got back.
Do you find that people, being that the Capitol Theater is your home base, do you find that the historical nature of that facility and its legacy within at least country music anyway, do you find that people are familiar with the Capitol Theater and that kind of gives them a reference point?
In certain regions, like when they go to Nashville,
absolutely.
It was a Grand Ole Opry, and the Capitol and the Grand Ole Opry had such a symbiotic relationship about doing that type of jamboree style programming, live radio broadcast, that type of thing. And Elvis performed at the place where my podium usually.
I know, right?
So there is a reputation that precedes it, and a lot of people just are like, Wheeling is that place that when I'm driving west, I pass right through. It's so beautiful, those rivers and the bridges. And then I'm like, well, do you know that big building with the painted blue sign on the back? That's our home. And then we get to talking about Wheeling. So, in so many ways, that artistic connection to what they value with their own orchestra, that's what can connect people to Wheeling for the first time. And I love having those conversations and then getting into what makes Wheeling in the Ohio Valley such a special place.
I had an opportunity once I was doing a program at the Capitol, and there was a lot of downtime, and I just roamed the theater. I think I was followed by a few ghosts, but it's such an interesting facility. It's bigger than people would think. It's huge, and I loved just the history there, just the names who've played there, and the names you're bringing in. It's just continuing that tradition. When you were giving us an overview of the community outreach you're doing, which sounds like it's a huge part of your job, it reminded me of what we do here at Trinity.
Sure.
In fact, before you today, we interviewed our new communication specialist, whose responsibility is to reach out to the community. This is kind of an obvious question, but I'll ask it anyway. How vital is community engagement to an organization, not just a medical organization like Trinity Health System, but an artistic organization like WSO? How important, how vital is that to your overall health as an organization?
Sure. I think every artist like myself, every board member, every administrator at any arts organization is going to say it's vital.
Yeah.
But I think that responsibility is multiplied when there are as few performing arts organizations as there are in a place like Wheeling, or frankly in a state like West Virginia.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are many others doing amazing work. Most notably, I think Ogilvy Institute, which is a great partner to us in so many ways. In fact, in 2 weeks' time after this interview, we will be partnering with Ogilvy Institute's dance company for our opening night masterworks. Like, we care deeply about those types of connections. But, I think it's stepping back. It's not just convincing people that music or orchestras is important. We have to figure out first, why is it important? Is it because people want to hear music and be entertained? Is it because we want to teach people lessons about life through music, or about what it means to be a citizen in our country, or how to be kind to other people? One of the things I think music teaches best is empathy.
Yes.
Because all of a sudden, if you're hearing a piece by Beethoven, it's 1800 in Vienna.
Yeah.
And we have to think about, what was it like to live there at that time? What is it like to be deaf and be an artist?
Right.
What is it like to be somebody who was living in many times destitute conditions because he wasn't paid enough to be an artist? He had to put on benefit concerts for his own good all throughout his whole life. And so how do we want governments, and how do we want boards, and how do we want audiences to support arts? And then, in this time, it's like arts are another thing that unites us, because there's an orchestra playing tonight in Wheeling, West Virginia, and one in Seattle, Washington, and one in Tokyo, Japan, and one in Cape Town, South Africa. And we all speak the same language. And so many times when you have other things that happen all across the world, like athletics, for example, we're about to have the Winter Olympic Games in a few months. The design is competition. For the arts, it's creation of beauty. convening, understanding, living other people's lives. And I think the more that we can put ourselves in a position to think, what was it like to live at another time? Or what story is being told? Or why do we not know Everett Lee's name? I think it can better our own living conditions and those around us. So to me, it's like those are the types of community engagement things. And then once you understand why you want to do community engagement, designing the projects that fall underneath that umbrella become self-evident what the needs are in a community.
Right. Let's get into some of those. That's so beautifully stated. Let's get into some of those upcoming events. So we're sponsoring, and this podcast will probably be released after this has happened, but I'd like to talk about it anyway. Trinity Health System is sponsoring your October 25th concert, Painted on the Sky. And that's where the school dance is going to be, the Ogilvy Institute School of Dance. And you've also brought in a prominent lighting designer, Doug Fitch, to work with you. You're also performing I pronounce it Appalachian. I'm not sure. Appalachian.
You'll get in trouble either way. And there's not really a way to fudge it in the middle. So Appalachian Spring.
I mean, that sells it for me right there.
Yeah.
So give us an overview. So that sounds like a very busy evening. So what can audiences expect from a concert like Painted on the Sky?
Remember I talked about defining your priorities?
Yeah.
This type of concert is emblematic of the priorities that we have as an organization. One is we want to support living American composers. The first piece by Eric Nathan, who is a living American composer, was actually
collaborated with quite a bit. And I'm sorry to.
Oh yeah, he is the composer in whom I believe the most, and collaborated with for over 20 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so he has been to Wheeling before. We did his double concerto a couple of years ago on a concert that was right after he came back from COVID. And this concert will open with a piece called Opening. He was commissioned to write this piece by the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra, who opened a brand new concert hall, multi-$100-million project a couple of years ago. And what an honor for him to be asked by one of the nation's foremost orchestras to write a new piece. And one of the things that it does is this whole concert is about breaking down the fourth wall. The orchestra will actually be, many of the members, out in the hall with the audience as the concert begins. And people are already going to walk in and they're going to be like, why are there these enormous pieces of fabric hanging from the ceiling? Why is there all this lighting equipment all over the place? And then they're going to hear music that immerses them in the first piece. And then you mentioned Doug Fitch.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking about not just American composers, but American creators.
Yeah.
And Doug Fitch, the first day I walked into graduate school at the University of Maryland, you talked about people with whom I apprenticed. Jim Ross was my teacher for 7 years as I did my master's and doctorate at the University of Maryland. And his collaborations with Doug Fitch were some of the things that made me think differently about music and concerts. Because the first time I stepped into the concert hall at the University of Maryland, I didn't have a baton in my hand. I had a 40-pound camera on my back. Because Doug Fitch had designed a project around a famous Igor Stravinsky piece called Petrushka, where the orchestra acted out the story of that piece live while they performed it. I had never seen anything like it. There was puppetry, there were props, there were costumes, there was juggling on stage.
Oh my God.
There was everything you could imagine. It's a story about a big fair and then puppets that come alive. And so Doug Fitch has gone on to compose and design projects with the likes of the New York Philharmonic and the Metropolitan Opera. So for years I've been saying, Doug, when you have space in your schedule, please do something for Wheeling. And finally 2 years ago, he said, okay, I have time. So we co-commissioned this project, meaning we split resources and the financial backing with the Omaha Symphony, an orchestra much bigger than ours, to support someone like Doug Fitch. And a dear friend of mine named Ankush Bahel was at that time the music director there. So we worked with Doug and the administrations at both orchestras. And I went out to see the premiere, which happened last October at the Omaha Symphony. So I'm one of the only people in Wheeling who sees this already.
Seen it already, yeah.
It is breathtaking. And the fact that he, at our request, included young dancers as part of the programmatic identity of this project means that we could collaborate with our wonderful sister organization in the Ogilvy Institute. So that is second on the program. And there will be lighting, there will be dance, there will be props and visual effects, and there'll be some things I don't even want to mention here because I want everybody to be surprised. But it's setting a piece by Benjamin Britten, an opera called Peter Grimes, and each of the movements that is in this piece has a very distinctive setting that musically it's trying to depict. So we're augmenting what the music does with all of these visual and dance elements And I think it'll be something the audience will never forget.
Sounds incredible.
Yeah.
And Copeland.
Yeah, and then I'm also gonna squeeze one other thing in there, because after intermission, the third artistic identity principle is featuring our musicians, because we have such amazing musicians.
Yes, you do.
And 4 of them will be stepping to the front of the stage to play a concerto right after intermission, a piece by Robert Schumann called Concert. And so, have you ever heard 4 French horns play really loudly and virtuosically together at the front of the stage?
It sounds amazing.
It is. And so that's going to be the piece right after intermission. And then we'll close with a piece that is written about our region by one of the most, if not the most famous American composers of all time, Aaron Copland. And Appalachian Spring has come to define American classical music identity.
It sure has.
And to end our first concert of the year, that is a season about what it means like to have your home be in the Ohio Valley.
Yeah.
It felt so appropriate to leave people with that taste of both beauty and nostalgia that the piece Appalachian Spring invokes every single time we hear it. It's incredible.
How important is Trinity's sponsorship of an event like that, organizations like Trinity?
Yeah. Trinity has stepped up to be a leader amongst many organizations in the Ohio Valley that prioritize the Wheeling Symphony and the artistic identity that it provides to us. Because one of the only things that people say about Wheeling when they're bragging about what it has that other places don't is a symphony orchestra, and Ogilvy Park, and the Ohio River. I mean, right? And so the fact that there are so many incredible supporters, of which Trinity is, of course, at the front, means that the community support that we have enables us to do more ambitious projects and to punch above our weight class as far as a city that has 25,000 people in it. We are the smallest city in America that supports a full professional orchestra, and we are not even close to being on the small side of professional orchestras. What that says is that there are people like the leadership here at Trinity that believe in what we do, that think it makes the region more livable, and it attracts people to want to work here and live here, which supports the entire community, because they know that if they come here and they have a health emergency or they need care, that Trinity is here to support them in that. And then when they see Trinity supporting the local arts, that relationship becomes symbiotic in a beautiful way. So I'm glad to be here talking to you.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad to be at an organization that a place like Trinity has chosen to support.
It's something that crossed my mind when you were saying that is, it also shows how community is interconnected.
Correct.
Kind of like what we were talking about with music. Healthcare is not independent from the arts.
It is not.
In fact, the arts lead to good health, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Coming up, I mean, you may only have 11 programs a year, 11 concerts a year, but you really stack the deck.
We maximize.
Maximize. That's a great way to put it. So Symphony on the Ice is coming up on Thursday, December 4th. This sounds incredible. You've got Olympic figure skater and national champion Mariah Bell. You've got musical guest Amanda McGovern, the WSO Community Choir. And this goes to our community outreach. Over 200 local choir students.
One of the things that inspired me when I was looking at the Wheeling Symphony as a place that I could potentially make my musical home was this event. Because I looked at that and I said, that is innovative, it's community connected, it brings in an enormous crowd, and it celebrates the holidays in a way that feels completely tied to the arts. This was completely in place before I got here. I take no credit for the idea, but I have loved embracing what it means to not just Wheeling, to the entire valley, because we get, 3,000-4,000 people there. There's people driving from Columbus and Cincinnati and Pittsburgh and all up and down the river to say, like, this is what kicks off the holiday season for us. So
that's amazing.
It's
really bringing people from all over to Wheeling.
Right. And thank goodness we have the arena to support that right downtown. And
thank goodness the symphony had the foresight to take advantage of that facility, and show how it's not just for sports.
It's certainly not for sports, just only, although we love that.
Absolutely.
The Nailers are there.
It's incredible, yeah.
Yeah, but there was a long time when it was a big part of our history, and it went away for a little while. And I have to give credit to one of our former board members, Paul Tucker, who led the revitalization of this event. And the fact that it's back and in such full force, it serves every aspect of what we want to do. It's a big moneymaker for the symphony. We need a few of those.
Oh, I'm sure.
To do our programs. It brings the choirs together. And you mentioned that there are over 200 students in the choir and the community choir. The community choir is a brand new project that launched at the end of last year. And we are so excited that it is a permanent part of our offerings now. The reason we call it the community choir is because it is people that live in and around Wheeling that get together on a weekly basis to rehearse, and we're finding all sorts of ways for them to collaborate. So they were featured on our final Masterworks concert of the year last year. They sang at Music Under the Stars. They're going to sing at Symphony on Ice this year. They're going to collaborate with the youth orchestra at the end of the season. And I love it because all regional orchestras are like this, but our players don't necessarily live in Wheeling. But these people who are in the community choir do. So when you see friends and family members and people that are integrated in your community in all sorts of ways on stage, performing with the symphony, it really creates that sense of community that we've been talking about the entire conversation.
Yes.
So the fact that they're going to be with us for the first time makes me extremely happy. And then Amanda McGovern, you mentioned her. This is another example of what we think it is our responsibility to do. When there's somebody from our area that grew up going to the Wheeling Symphony that wants to make it as an artist, she, I think, is going to be a big Broadway star one day.
Yeah.
So as soon as I heard her and saw how well she performed with the symphony, we brought her back time and time again, saying, this is a star from right within our own ranks. Let's support her and give her a platform. And then the skaters, not only do we have those Olympic skaters, but there are also hundreds of skaters, both young and mature, that skate, and that's their connection artistically to the Wheeling Symphony as well. So the concert is a huge hit every single year, and we're so thankful that Trinity has come to the fore and said, we want this to be an important part of what we support at the Symphony. And it's going to be a great event. This year it's back in December, like you said, on the 4th, and we hope lots of people come and enjoy something that I think is not just unique to our region, but all across the country.
And in addition to that, I mean, we've talked about Star Wars: A New Hope, but you've also got Endless Love, All My Memories, that's coming up in the spring, correct? In the winter, spring?
That's right. So the season is just about a third of the way done once we have our concert that we've talked about in a couple weeks, Painted on the Sky. The movie series is coming back with Star Wars. We've heard so much clamoring that people want to relive that. Lots of people I've spoken to said that in 1977, when A New Hope Episode 4 came out, they saw it at the Victoria Theater, right up the street from the Capitol.
That's cool.
And so that type of story just makes me so happy. And then we have the remainder, as you mentioned, of our classical series. So many wonderful things there. And then a couple days before Valentine's Day, Endless Love. We have 2 big Broadway stars coming in to sing songs about love. It's going to be a great date night. Let us take care of your Valentine's Day plans for you. Yeah.
Now, you also take donations from the community.
We do.
Correct. So if someone wants to donate, become a patron of the WSO, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah. So this is the case with so many nonprofits, but about 30% of our revenue comes in a fashion that we call earned revenue, where that's ticket sales or program fees, things like that. 70% is based on the generosity of the community. So institutions like Trinity donate and sponsor events. There are foundations, both in West Virginia and across the country, that sponsor our work. But the most important parts are those grassroots donations from individuals that allow us that we call it our annual fund, that allow us to present the programming we want to program so that we can keep ticket prices affordable and make it accessible to as many people as possible.
Right.
So the way to do that is if you're just getting involved and you're donating, for the first time or donating a small amount, just jump onto our website, wheelingsymphony.com. There's a donate button there, and you'll get a thank you note from our wonderful Director of Development, Laura Rausch, and we'll start a conversation with you. If you're thinking about making a more substantial gift, a more meaningful gift that's going to show us that your priority is the arts in Wheeling, then give the office a call. We want to have a conversation with you about why you want to do that and how you want that money to be spent. And we have a whole team, myself very much included, that would love to have that conversation with you.
My final question for you, thank you for that information. If someone's watching this, a young person, say you 20, 25 years ago,
Sure.
when you were in your teens, and they're hearing how excited you are about it, how passionate you are, and they're like, I'm intrigued. And then they're a talented musician, they're looking at a career in music, but they hear all the usual things people who are seeking a career in the arts hear about how it's impossible and all this. What would you, but they love your passion and they've really connected with you on that. What would you say to that young person about pursuing this career path? What advice would you give to them?
The first thing that I would say is you're lucky to live in Wheeling, West Virginia, or to be close to Wheeling, West Virginia, because our symphony is small and we can support you in incredibly interesting ways. I have students coming to rehearsals and getting an inside peek that normally would be closed off to them. we have a young man that wants to be an orchestral conductor, wants to have my job one day. And we were able to get him onto the conducting staff, and I mentor him.
Wow.
Amanda McGovern is another great example of somebody that wouldn't have a chance to sing with the New York Philharmonic if she lived in New York, but because she's from here, she's been presented as a soloist 4 times in the last 3 years with her local symphony. And there are people now in college and graduate programs with teachers that they met through the Wheeling Symphony Orchestra, and they may be at Carnegie Mellon or Pitt or Duquesne pursuing it at the highest level. So if you're thinking about becoming a professional in this field, just call the office and tell us, and we will find a bespoke way to help you feel supported by the symphony. And then if you're just getting curious about it and feel like it might not be for you, just remember that an orchestra is simply the collection of instruments we use to make music. But just because a lot of the music that we're famous for was written hundreds of years ago and might not feel like it's for you, of course it's not for you. You weren't alive yet. Right. It was for other people. But I think as we get older, we start to appreciate history more, right?
Yeah,
we see ourselves as part of a fabric of something much bigger than ourselves. And so gain some curiosity about what role did orchestras play in communities, and what role did this music that has no words, that was written in another country hundreds of years ago, how could it be relevant to you? But also think of that as just a lineage, right? Like you might love football right now, but do you know every player from the Steelers in 1971? But there's something that connects that to this.
Absolutely.
So find the thing about an orchestra that you love, focus on that, and then we'll help you broaden your horizons a little bit to say, if you love this, I think you might also love that.
Right.
And that's my job as a programmer, as you were mentioning. Come for Chris Thiele, hear about Everett Lee, and maybe you'll find something new that you love. And we just want to spark curiosity.
And the prices are so affordable that if you're not sure you're going to like something, it's kind of worth the investment to give it a try.
Yeah, tickets start at $14. And for everyone who's collegiate aged or younger and is a student in any sort of program, we have free and discounted ticket packages beneath that for them. And July 4th is free. Music Under the Stars is free.
Right.
Everything we do in the community as far as our young people's concerts, those are all free. So we have lots of opportunities for people to come to check us out for the first time free of charge. But then of course we hope, come on down. When you buy a ticket, don't think of it as, oh, is this worth it in a transactional sense? You're giving us a little fraction of money that helps us make sure these concerts are available.
Absolutely.
It's really an exchange of trust.
And it may broaden your horizon about music.
Yeah, and that's what we want, is for you to experience something that makes your life better. And it could be the way the music sounded. It could be a story we told from stage. It could be a guest artist that sparked your interest in something completely new. Or it could be a conversation you're having with somebody that you've never met before that's sitting next to you that asks you, have you been here before? And you make a new friend. There's so many things that your music unites, and we want all of those things to be available for you every time you step in our home.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a delight talking to you.
You as well.
And I look forward to the rest of your season.
Thank you so much.
I'm hoping to get to quite a few programs. So thank you again, John. I appreciate it. And thank you folks for watching. We'll see you again next time.